My husband gave me a watch for our anniversary, but every time I wore it, I felt sick. I took it to a pawn shop, and the old appraiser turned pale and whispered, "Sweetie, where did you get this? There's a terrible story behind it." So there I was, sitting in this fancy steakhouse downtown, you know the type, where they dim the lights so low you can barely read the menu and charge $30 for a piece of meat. David had this weird look on his face, like he was about to tell me he'd wrecked the car or something, but instead, he pulls out this little black box. "Happy anniversary, babe," he says, but his voice is all shaky, not the good kind of nervous either, more like guilty nervous, if that makes sense. I open it up and holy cow, the most gorgeous watch I've ever laid eyes on, rose gold, sparkly little diamonds, the works. My first thought was, honestly, we're gonna be eating ramen for the next 6 months to pay for this thing. "David, we can't afford." "Don't worry about it," he cuts me off real quick. He's fumbling with the clasp, trying to put it on my wrist, and here's the weird part, he knew exactly how to work it, like he'd done it before. David usually needs 3 tries and a YouTube video to figure out my regular jewelry, but this, smooth as butter. The thing felt heavy, not just physically heavy, but, I know this sounds crazy, but it felt like it had some kind of weight that wasn't about the gold and diamonds. You ever touch something that just feels wrong? Like when you're a kid and you find a dead bird, and even though it looks peaceful, something inside you screams, "Don't touch that?" "Where'd you get it?" I asked, watching his face real careful. "Estate sale," he says, not meeting my eyes. "Some old lady downtown said it needed someone young and pretty to wear it." Bull. David hates estate sales, says they're full of dead people's junk and give him the creeps. First day I wore it to work, I thought I was dying. Seriously, like full-on food poisoning, can't keep anything down, sick. But here's the kicker. The second I took the watch off in the bathroom, boom, fine, totally fine. My coworker Janet found me hunched over the sink, looking like death warmed over. "Girl, what happened to you?" "Must be something I ate," I lied, staring at the watch in my hand. The diamonds were still sparkling, still beautiful, but now they looked almost smug. Like they were laughing at me. Tried it again the next day because I'm apparently a glutton for punishment. Same thing happened. That watch was like kryptonite or something. Made me feel like someone was sucking the life right out of me through my wrist. But when I tried to tell David, he got this look on his face I'd never seen before. "You don't like it?" Not a question, an accusation. "No, I love it," I said, which wasn't totally a lie. It was gorgeous. Maybe it's too nice for every day. I don't want to scratch it up at work." Wrong answer. His whole face changed, like a storm cloud rolling in. "I spent good money on that watch, Sarah. Real good money. The least you could do is show some appreciation." Good money, right. I do our books, remember? I know exactly how much good money we have, and spoiler alert, it ain't watch buying money. No mysterious withdrawals, no credit card charges, nothing. So where the hell did this thing come from? That night I tried wearing it to bed, thinking maybe I just needed to get used to it. Bad idea. Woke up at 3 in the morning in a cold sweat, having the worst nightmare of my life. Some woman screaming, crying for help. The dreams kept coming, every single night. Always the same woman's voice, terrified and desperate. Always the same feeling like something horrible had happened to her. I started leaving the watch in the bathroom when I slept, but even then, I could feel it somehow, like it was calling to me. David noticed I wasn't wearing it much, started making these passive-aggressive comments about how his investment was sitting in a drawer. Then he started lying about where he got it. First, it was an estate sale, then a pawn shop, then some customer at the garage gave it to him as a tip. Yeah, right. What customer tips their mechanic with a $20,000 watch? Oh, did I mention? I looked it up. This thing was worth more than our car. The lies were getting worse, and David was getting different, checking up on me more, asking where I was going, who I was talking to, like he was afraid I might disappear or something. I'm not stupid. When your husband starts acting shady and lying about expensive jewelry, you start asking questions. So, I did some digging online, trying to figure out exactly what kind of watch this was. Swiss made, probably custom. The kind of thing you inherit from your grandmother or buy for your wife when you make partner at a law firm. Not the kind of thing that falls off a truck, if you know what I mean. My sister Emma noticed something was wrong when I visited her in Milwaukee. "You look terrible," she says, straight to the point like always. "Skinny and pale. Are you sick?" I almost told her everything right then, about the watch, the dreams, David's weird behavior, but something held me back. Fear, maybe, or the growing suspicion that I was married to a stranger. Turns out, I was right to be scared. Found the photos by accident. David keeps this old album locked in his desk drawer. Well, he tries to keep it locked, but the lock's been busted for months. I was looking for stamps, and there it was, just sitting there like it wanted to be found. Pictures of David with some blonde woman I'd never seen before. Pretty girl, big smile, looked happy, and in 3 different photos, she's wearing my watch. The exact same watch David supposedly bought me for our anniversary. One photo had writing on the back, "David, Michelle, Christmas 2019, our last holiday together." 2019, 2 years before David and I even met. I sat there staring at those pictures for, I don't know how long, my brain trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This Michelle girl had been wearing my watch years before I knew David existed. So either he'd been lying about when he got it, or something much worse had happened to Michelle. That night, I waited until David was in a good mood. He'd had a decent day at work, wasn't stressed about money. Then I casually brought up the photos. "Hey babe, I found some old pictures today. Who's Michelle?" You know that expression, deer in headlights? That was David's face, times 1,000. He went white as a sheet, started stuttering like a broken record. "Michelle? She was. We dated before you. Ancient history. Why?" She was wearing my watch in the pictures. The silence that followed was deafening. David just stood there, opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. Finally, he managed to croak out, "She gave it back when we broke up. Thought you'd like it." But his eyes were darting around the room, looking anywhere but at me, and I absolutely knew, he was lying through his teeth. Couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michelle's face from those photos. She looked so happy, so alive, and now she was. What? Where was she? Why did David have her watch? The questions kept spinning in my head like a washing machine stuck on the spin cycle. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was going to find out the truth about that watch, no matter what. Called in sick to work, first time in 2 years, and spent the day hitting every pawn shop in Chicago. Started with the ones near our apartment, then worked my way downtown. Most of the shop owners were nice enough, but nobody recognized the watch. "Too many expensive pieces come and go," they said. But then I walked into Golden Gate Pawn on the south side. The old guy behind the counter took one look at my watch and his face went chalk white. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, "where did you get that?" The old guy, his name tag said Frank, was shaking as he examined the watch with one of those little magnifying glasses. "Sweetie," he says, and his voice is all rough and scared, "there's a terrible story behind this piece." My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might burst. What kind of story? Frank looked around his shop like he was afraid someone might be listening. "This belonged to Michelle Parker. Sweet girl, worked at some big law firm downtown. She came in here maybe 6 months ago crying her eyes out. 6 months ago, David and I had been married for almost 2 years by then. She was selling it? Trying to. Said her boyfriend had gotten dangerous. Real dangerous. She was scared for her life, wanted to sell all the expensive stuff he'd given her and skip town. Start over somewhere, he couldn't find her. The room started spinning. I gripped the counter to keep from falling over. What happened to her? Frank's face got even more serious. She never made it back to finish the sale. Police found her car in the Chicago River 3 days later. Michelle was inside. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. An accident? That's what they said. But Michelle was sharp as a tack, careful driver, and she was planning to disappear, remember? People don't usually drive into rivers when they're trying to start a new life. I felt like I might throw up. The boyfriend. Did she tell you his name? Frank nodded grimly. David Morrison. Said he worked at some garage, had started following her around, making threats when she tried to break up with him. David Morrison, my husband. The man I shared a bed with every night, the man who made me coffee every morning and kissed me goodbye when he left for work. You need to call the police, Frank said urgently. If this man killed Michelle and now he's married to you. He is my husband, I whispered. Frank's eyes went wide with horror. Oh, honey. Oh, no. I stumbled out of that pawn shop like a zombie. Everything looked different, the streets, the buildings, even the sky. Like I'd been living in some kind of fake world and now I was seeing reality for the first time. Michelle hadn't broken up with David. She'd been trying to escape him, and instead of letting her go, he'd… what? Killed her? Made it look like an accident? Back home, I walked through our apartment seeing everything with new eyes. All those times David had discouraged me from hanging out with friends. All his questions about where I was going, who I was with. All his little comments about how I was too trusting and needed him to protect me. I'd thought it was love, but it was control. In our bedroom, I stared at those photos of Michelle, understanding now what her smile was really saying. It wasn't happiness. It was fear, disguised as happiness. David came home that night with flowers and Chinese takeout, acting all lovey-dovey. Too lovey-dovey, if you know what I mean. Like he was trying to make up for something. How was your day, beautiful? You looked a little tired this morning. I forced myself to smile, to act normal. But inside, I was screaming. This man had murdered Michelle, his previous girlfriend. And now he was watching me with those same calculating eyes, probably wondering if I was going to cause him the same kind of trouble she had. Just a long day at work, I lied. But I did some shopping, bought some earrings to go with the watch. His whole face lit up. You're wearing it more now. That's great, babe. It looks perfect on you. Perfect. Just like it had looked perfect on Michelle before she'd tried to run away from him. I excused myself to the bathroom and called Emma, whispering into the phone like my life depended on it. Which, honestly, it probably did. I need help, I told Emma. I can't explain everything right now, but I need somewhere to stay tonight, maybe longer. God bless my sister, she didn't ask a million questions, just said, I'll be there in 2 hours, pack light and be ready. When I came back to the living room, David was holding my wrist, examining the watch. His fingers traced the band like he was remembering something. It suits you better than it suited her, he said softly. Ice water ran through my veins. Her? For just a second, his mask slipped completely. His eyes went cold and empty, like looking into a shark tank. Nothing, babe, just thinking out loud. But I knew exactly what he meant. He was comparing me to Michelle, probably wondering if I'd be as much trouble when I inevitably tried to leave him, if I'd fight as hard as she had. The answer was hell yes. But unlike Michelle, I had advance warning. Emma showed up exactly 2 hours later, creating a scene at the front door while I slipped out the back with nothing but a backpack. I left the watch on the nightstand with a note. Some things can't stay buried forever, David. Just ask Michelle. We drove straight to the police station. The detective on duty was this no-nonsense woman named Rodriguez, who listened to my whole crazy story without interrupting once. We always suspected David Morrison in the Michelle Parker case. She admitted after I finished talking, but Michelle had been so isolated by the end, we couldn't find anyone who'd seen them together recently. Your testimony changes everything. 3 days later, they arrested David at the garage. Turns out he had a whole collection of Michelle's jewelry stashed in a safety deposit box under a fake name. The watch had been her grandmother's, a family heirloom worth over 20 grand. All those months he'd been making me wear a dead woman's jewelry. The trial took 18 months. David got convicted of second-degree murder, and Michelle's family finally got some closure. Her sister cried when I gave her back the watch, thanking me over and over for not letting Michelle's story die with her. I think about Michelle a lot now. Sometimes I wonder if she was the one sending me those dreams, trying to warn me before I ended up like her. The nightmares stopped completely after David's arrest. Now I sleep peacefully, dreaming about my future instead of her past. I'm dating again, slowly, carefully. Emma teases me about having trust issues, but some lessons you learn the hard way. I've gotten good at spotting red flags, listening to my gut when something feels off. And I've learned that sometimes the dead find ways to speak to the living. Sometimes they use dreams, sometimes they use jewelry that makes you sick, sometimes they use old pawnshop owners with good memories. So here's what I want you to take away from this whole mess. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone isolates you from your friends and family, that's not love, that's control. If they give you expensive gifts they can't afford, ask questions. Keep asking until you get real answers. And if someone you love gives you jewelry that makes you physically sick every time you wear it, don't ignore that. Your body might be trying to tell you something your brain hasn't figured out yet. Michelle's watch is back with her family now, where it belongs. But her story isn't over. It's a warning to women like me, like you, like anyone who might need to hear it. Sometimes, the most beautiful gifts come with the ugliest histories. Sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones we should fear. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, the victims find a way to save us from becoming victims ourselves. Listen to the voices that try to warn you. They might just save your life.